as one of those 1.5, 1.8 million people in Washington on 9/12, I can tell you the Tea Party movement is not an organization. It's a manifestation of a groundswell of frustration and, yes, Bob, even anger at the federal government not listening to we the people. We the people said, we don't want this stimulus bill. We the people said, we don't want this TARP bill. We the people said, we don't want all the pork that was in the 2009 federal budget. It's a breath of fresh air, as David said. It's more than that. It's an opportunity for we the people to stand up and assume our rightful place as the holders of the power in this country that we delegate to Congress.
Mr. Gowdy.
The Tea Party movement has captured brilliantly, magically, the anger, the frustration of the American public, millions of Americans, the disconnect that average Americans feel in Washington. But I think it is bigger than politics. It transcends the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Tea Party movement. One candidate can't claim to be the Tea Party candidate. The Tea Party decides who they want to represent them. It is bigger than politics.
Thank you. This question is for Mr. Lee. How much can and should the federal government do to reform health care?
Last I checked in the Constitution, health care was not an inalienable right. The federal government should be doing things to promote the general welfare, not provide for it. We have a morass of rules and regulations and, frankly, insanity when it comes to regulations governing health care. What the federal government should do is, first of all, diagnose the problem. What problem are we trying to solve? The health care bills that have all been proposed, and even some of those from the Republicans as well, they're unclear as to what they're supposed to solve. The first round was so many million people didn't have insurance, and then it was we're going to control health care costs, and then it was going to be about access to health care, and one thing after the other. Health is an individual responsibility. And when you start from that position, the relationship between the health care provider and the individual should be sacrosanct. Either the government or insurance companies should come between those. And we need to step back and have a meaningful conversation as a country.
Thank you. Representative Inglis?
First thing we need to do is have 50-state competition among private insurance companies. We need to do serious tort reform. That would be saying that go first to medical panel. If they say it's a valid case, you could go straight on to state court as per usual. If they say it's not a valid case, then it's lose or pays if you go on to state court. And we need to make equivalent tax treatment between the self-employed and those who work for companies. Those are reasonable things we can do. We can also make it so dependent children up to 26 to stay on their parents' policies, and we can end the rescissions of insurance companies. Those are things we can do step by step, as long as we reject the cram down of American health care reform that Pavon wants.
Senator Thomas?
Well, what we need to do is take some action. One of the things that is a huge problem is that the issue has been confused. You have a medical cost issue, you have an insurance issue. Availability is an insurance issue. There is something that can be done for that 30% of Americans that cannot get insurance. You can provide for them a policy, an availability of a policy that has taken away all the mandates. There are about 40 plus federal mandates, about 20 state mandates. That's typical of all the states. And you can have a bare bones policy as an option. That takes care of a substantial part of the problem.
Dr. Jeffrey?
Can you repeat the question?
How much can and should the federal government do to reform health care?
The federal government has to do something because the federal government has created the problems. The problems that exist are not created by the fact that health care is expensive naturally. It is naturally expensive. It's always been expensive. But the federal government is providing 50% of the health care to people. There's no way to privatize anything that somebody else is. The government pays for it. It's not private. You might have private insurance companies, government contractors, but if we're paying for it, it's not private, and the government will become between the physician and the patient.
Solicitor Gowdy?
Number one, decouple it from employment. That way, if you want to leave your job, you can take your health insurance with you. It's not tied to your employment. Have the same tax incentives for individuals as you have for employers. Allow Americans to buy insurance across state lines. Have litigation reform put on every single verdict form a check for the jury to say this was a frivolous claim or counterclaim. But ladies and gentlemen, the United States Constitution does not allow the federal government to order you to buy health insurance, and that is a point on which these candidates disagree.
Thank you. Senator Thomas, do you support a pathway for citizenship for people who are in this country illegally but have not violated the law in any other way? Yes.
Is that it? She's asked an illegal immigration question. I was one of the 5 state senators that led the effort to bring in E-Verify that would do as much as a state could do without federal involvement in getting rid of illegal immigration. It is a key critical issue. The fact that we still have huge numbers in America of illegals is one of the reasons why we have high unemployment. So for every job in illegal fields, that's a job that an American might want. What we have to do is not to create some kind of pathway. I'm sorry, Lindsey Graham, you're wrong about this. What we have to do is get firm and tough on this issue. And if we have to build more fences and increase the number of border guards, anything we have to do to enforce the law, we need to do.
Mr. Lee.
I think the question was, should we provide a pathway to legal citizenship status if they've done nothing else but violate the law by being here illegally? Is that correct? There is a path. They can go home and they can follow the processes established by law.
Representative Inglis.
First, tighten up the border. Second, require E-Verify mandatory nationwide. Third, tighten up driver's licenses and license tags. Fourth, limit social benefits to citizens. And then fifth, for the 12 million that were here illegally, say to them, come out of the shadows, pay $1,000, let's say, you get an 18-month stay. After that, you want a green card, go home to your home country, prove proficiency in English, pay another substantial fine, here's a green card. After that, you want to be a citizen, fine, we're open to that, we're America. It's just you're going to wait at the back of the line. It's going to take 8 to 13 years to clear the backlog. Consequences for the wrongdoing, redeeming the rule of law.
Solicitor Gowdy.
One of the images I remember most from my childhood is seeing Vietnamese husbands and wives and mothers and fathers passing their children to our soldiers, trying to get them on an airplane or a helicopter. I understand why people want to come to this country. It is the greatest country on earth. But it is the greatest country on earth because we have respect for the rule of law. And we can never, ever reward people for not doing it the right way. There are people waiting in line to come to this country that are playing by the rules. I will never agree to jump anyone over them that's violated the law.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey.
The answers are very plain. Everybody has given a pathway to handling the problem of illegal immigration. But there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and this gets to part of the root cause. The 14th Amendment has been misinterpreted by the courts now for quite some time as saying that if you're born in this country, you must be a U.S. citizen. My mother used to say, if you're born in a barn, you're not necessarily a horse. We in the Congress can make that clear by statute that you must have American parents in order to be an American.
Thank you. Representative Inglis, this question is for you. What role do you believe government should play in regulating so-called greenhouse gases? To Captain Trade.
I voted no on cap and trade because it's a tax increase, it's a Wall Street trading scheme, and it decimates American manufacturing. Just all around a bad idea. Art Laffer and Art Laffer remembers Ronald Reagan's economics advisor, have a very different, utterly different proposal. It starts with a tax cut. If Art Laffer's on the scene, you can be sure it starts with a tax cut. And the idea of the tax cut is to make it so that you have money in your pocket to pay for the all-in economic analysis of the energy problem, which is that we got to have all of the cost associated with our dependence on foreign oil and with our use of coal and non-use of nuclear. If we get all of it in, change the economics, have money in our pockets to pay for that change, then we can reinvent America's energy situation. We can build nuclear power plants, and we can repower the way we get around in cars. And we will do a lot of that right here in South Carolina. Back to that
Thank
job
you.
creation opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity for us in South Carolina.
Solicitor Gavin.